Brandon's tensions between Israelis and Palestinians are still heated as more rockets and airstrikes come down on either side. More than 100 people have reportedly died in Gaza and 7 have died in Israel. Joining us to talk about the conflict are Richard Goldberg, Senior Advisor at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, and Hatem Abudayyeh, the National Chair of the United States Palestinian Community Network and a spokesperson for the Chicago Coalition for Justice in Palestine. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. And you both have families and friends in the affected areas. Hatem Abudayyeh, what are you hearing from them?
Well, we're hearing that there's a lot of concern, and it's growing, that, people that are family members in the West Bank of mine, and then friends in Jerusalem especially, who have been in the eye of the storm, so to speak, where the escalation has been clearly initiated by Israel, especially the threats of forced evictions of over 1,000 residents of Sheikh Jarrah and other neighborhoods in Jerusalem, part of really a policy of ongoing ethnic cleansing and attempts to establish an Israeli Jewish majority in Jerusalem. And, the people that I know there are concerned about being pushed out of their homes, and they're concerned about the Israeli military, police, and the racist settler gangs who continue to attack Palestinians in the streets of Jerusalem, including those that were chanting death to Arabs while they were doing it.
Richard Goldberg, before we get to some of the issues that Hatem Abudayyeh just mentioned, what are you hearing from the people you know?
Yeah, my social media feed is filled with friends and family showing pictures of them and their loved ones at 2, 3 a.m. in the morning as the rockets are raining down throughout Israel, huddled up with their children crying in their bomb shelters, and really asking, if this was Chicago and we were under attack from a terrorist organizations raining rockets down on Chicago, what would we ask President Biden to do in response? Of course, we're not going to have a moral equivalency between a democracy fighting for its own self-defense and a terrorist organization raining down indiscriminately to target civilians.
Richard Goldberg, we just heard Hatem Abudayyeh say that the precipitating event were the evictions. In your view, what has been the precipitating event?
Yeah, that's really a pretext that Hamas has been using. This neighborhood with the housing dispute really goes back to the late 19th century when it was a Jewish neighborhood all the way till 1947, 1948. And when the Jordanians came during the Israeli War of Independence, they kicked out the Jewish residents and Arabs took some of those homes. Now, a lot of those people did not get title to those homes. And so similarly to how decades later we've seen Jewish families sue for artwork that the Nazis stole, there's been litigation going through the Israeli courts to take back some of these homes as well. But really what we had was a Palestinian election that had been scheduled for later this month. It was canceled. And Hamas, if they had participated, would have done very well in those elections. So those elections were canceled by the Palestinian Authority. The president of the Palestinian Authority is completing his 16th year of a 4-year term, not exactly a flourishing democracy in the Palestinian territories. But Hamas, the terrorist organization, said, you know what? This is a new opportunity. It's a new president of the United States. The Abraham Accords, the Arab-Israeli normalizations that have been taking place leave us sort of behind. We want to reassert ourselves and show some power. And so they instigated some violence and now are obviously raining down rockets across Israel.
Hatem Abudayyeh, how about it? Is it more? Does it go beyond the evictions? Is it more nuanced, as we just heard Mr. Goldberg say?
Yeah, it's absolutely more nuanced. This is not a legal dispute. It's just really another example of white settler colonialism and ethnic cleansing. Even Beit Salim, the Israeli Human Rights Organization, the International Human Rights Organization, Human Rights Watch, are calling this land grab an example of why Israel is an apartheid state. 25 House Democrats have signed a letter co-sponsored by Illinois Representative Marie Newman and Wisconsin Representative Mark Pocan asking the Secretary of State to condemn the evictions. And it's really ridiculous when apologists for Israel, like Rich Goldberg, talk about how the Israelis are responding in self-defense. You can't be responding in self-defense if you are the aggressor. If you have the strongest military in the region, the most well-equipped, the most technologically advanced, and you're attacking essentially a civilian population, those racist white supremacist gangs of settlers who were attacking the Palestinians and chanting death to Arabs, they're emboldened by a government of Netanyahu that is also white supremacist. It reminds me a lot, Phil, of our own situation in the United States, where white supremacists were attacking Black people, immigrants, other people of color, and they were emboldened by Trump because Trump is a white supremacist as well. And so when Israel is initiating,
you've made some important points, Richard. Hatem Abudayyeh. Richard Goldberg, your response to the assertion that this is comparable to white supremacy in this country.
Well, it's a pretty disgusting attack, quite frankly. It borders anti-Semitism, to be frank. But listen, Hamas is a foreign terrorist organization. It's been designated by both Democratic and Republican presidents of the United States. They are responsible for killing American citizens, not just Israelis, over many years. Palestinian Islamic Jihad, another terrorist organization, is coordinating with Hamas in these attacks. We know that it's controlled, taking orders from Tehran. Iran, the leading state sponsor of terrorism in the world, supports these terrorist groups. And Israel is a democracy, rated free by Freedom House. It's really, with a functioning judiciary, a flourishing democracy. And so, we don't need to sit here and listen to propaganda that tries to equate a terrorist organization with a flourishing democracy that is one of the closest allies of the United States. We know the truth, and tonight we pray for those who are in harm's way. We hope the violence stops. We hope Hamas stops the rocket attacks, and very quickly we restore peace.
Phil, the truth is that it's not just Hamas that's responding. This is the entire resistance movement in Palestine, including all of the political forces, are resisting Israel's violence against the Palestinian people in unity, together, fighting for our self-defense and the defense of the people that Israel has been attacking mercilessly, really, for not just weeks or months, but decades. A policy of an Israeli policy that is trying to push more and more Palestinians out of Jerusalem so that Jerusalem will remain a majority Israeli Jewish city. That's why we call Israel an apartheid state. That's why Israel actually is now being isolated across the world. It is a pariah state, even in the United States. The Democratic Party, the base of the Democratic Party, and its legislators are starting to realize what Israel represents, a white settler colonialist state.
Excuse me for interrupting. We're almost out of time, and I'd like to give Richard Goldberg a chance to respond. Where do we go from here, Richard Goldberg?
Yeah, listen, I think that Hamas has already accomplished what it set out to accomplish, which was to put itself back on the radar, to be part of the discussion in the Middle East going forward. The Biden administration's in Vienna right now in indirect talks with the Iranians regarding potentially going back to the nuclear deal. There's a possibility of more normalization between additional Arab states and Israel. So they wanted to assert themselves with the cancellation of the Palestinian elections. They've done that. The Israelis have some strategic objectives that they're pursuing right now to take out the command and control of the Hamas terrorist leaders, their operational capabilities and their intelligence capabilities. Once the Israelis feel that they've done that, then I think we will quickly see a de-escalation.
And gentlemen, so much more to talk about. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. My thanks to Hatem Abudayyeh and Richard Goldberg. Gentlemen, thank you.